Burlesque by Kamari333, Chapter 8, Gifts and Planning. Dance is utterly terrified. Since he opened the door and saw it was red on the other side, he's been out of his mind with worry for lust. That thug had enough LV to kill a moose, as the humans say, although Dance is certain Red has the capacity to kill much larger, more dangerous creatures than a simple moose. And there is nothing Dance or anyone else Dance knows can do to stop him. Unless Lust had some sinister secret blackmail or other kind of leverage, Red holds literally all the cards. Strength, speed, experience, convenient lack of remorse. How the hell does he even live with himself with what he's done without being eaten alive by the sins on his back every minute of every day? Why doesn't it affect him? How is he still functional? Dance might be able to outsmart him, and with his shortcuts he could keep himself and Lust out of harm's way for a few minutes, but that would only get them so far against someone like that. Dance hated that feeling of helplessness, that heavy, choking pressure, that sense of futility of being overpowered without any control. He hated it, and he hated Red for making him feel that way. Lust, however, only seemed to become more at ease around Red. It was like Red made him feel safe, and Dance could only attribute that to Lust's obvious need for companionship and ingenuousness. Surely it was only because Lust could not see Red for the brute he was that this was even in contention. Dance wouldn't abandon him, not when he clearly needed him the most, and especially not now, when Dance finally had a shot at having an actual relationship with a decent soul. That first wonderful yet awful day, the three of them sat on the couch and watched TV, eating takeout. Luckily, one of the Grillby's established in town made deliveries. There had been a bit of an alarming spat about how to split the bill, as Red had stubbornly insisted on paying for his and Lust's share, but that Dance had to pay for himself. Dance threw up his hands in irritable, begrudging concession. Dance was of the mind that the least the asshole could do to make his cancerous presence more bearable was foot the bill, but it seemed he couldn't even do that. And then the three sat on the couch with Lust in the middle. Dance wanted to move between him and Red. He did, but he couldn't make his body move. His feet wouldn't take him any closer to Red than he was, nervous sweat slicking down his neck and spine. Instead, he made sure never to let go of Lust's hand, in case he needed to pull Lust out of harm's way. Red didn't make any sudden moves, although that was as much a power play as anything else. The goon slowly, deliberately wrapped his arm around Lust's shoulder and pulled Lust easily into his side. Lust, innocent as he was, hummed happily and snuggled into the crook of his arm. The sight sent a spike of shameful jealousy through Dance, and the only thing that stayed his hand was the sight of how dangerously Red's clawed phalanges gleamed dully in the light, curled cruelly around Lust's delicate cervical vertebrae, reminding Dance with a sobering shiver of fear just how dangerous it would be to anger him. Dance refused to let go of Lust's hand even so. He also refused to take his eyes off of Red. He didn't trust him. He couldn't trust him. Not him, with that sinister smirk and that menacing aura that chilled the very air. And he wouldn't let Red do whatever despicable thing he planned for Lust. Red was irritated. More than irritated, if he were honest. Dance was a prick, judgmental and rigid, harsh like a Russian winter storm and twice as unforgiving. Red didn't want that kind of negativity anywhere near what was his. He didn't want Dance trying to turn Lust against him, make Lust question Red's loyalty or intentions. He couldn't afford that. Lust had been genuinely confused about their relationship, which made Red realize that, perhaps, wherever Lust came from, didn't have the same culture as his. That was another seemingly insignificant piece of evidence in favor of his multiverse theory. But Red didn't have the luxury of pursuing that thought process further than to file the information away for later. Right now, he had a problem, and that problem was currently holding his date mate's hand. It made Red's blood boil, made his magic roil and seethe irritably in his marrow. He could feel his LV screaming to eliminate the threat, but Red ignored it. He ignored it because Dance was not a threat. Not really. Oh sure, he could try to take lust away, but he would never succeed. What Dance failed to realize was that Red had earned Lust's trust and affection already, and there was nothing under the sun that would make Red betray that trust. Red had to keep telling himself that over and over in his head, to beat back the intrusive thoughts that involved some rather graphic dismemberment. Red also refused to offer Dance the same protection and loyalty he was giving Lust. Even if these two didn't understand his culture, he sure as hell did. And that meant Dance wasn't getting any food out of him. Asshole could get his own food. Or maybe he could give him poisoned food? No, he can't do that. That's illegal. Boss would have his head. And the kid had put their faith in him to be an example for the rest of his kind. Red couldn't let them down, no matter how deliciously tempting. Also, Lust seemed to be mildly attached, so dusting him might make his mate sad, and that was unacceptable. Dance could live. For now. In the meantime, Red would just make sure that his date mate was well tended to. After getting the food delivered, Red shared some of his fries with Lust. When he was sure Lust was full, he wrapped his arm around his shoulders and pulled him closer. Red had to carefully conceal his immense gratification at feeling how perfectly Lust fit there in the crook of his arm, relaxed and content. He curled his phalanges carefully around Lust's neck, scratching under his jaw idly, a motion he was pleased to see was as welcome now as it had been the night before, when Lust had fallen asleep. Lust's sockets fluttered shut. How cute. Red noticed with no small amount of satisfaction how utterly green with envy the mechanic was. Hate-filled gaze boring into his skull as he stubbornly clung to Lust's free hand. Red continued to watch the TV, taking the high road. His sweetheart would love him more for it, and it certainly seemed to be pissing Dance off. Bonus. Red had everything in the bag. All he had to do was keep it safe, and wasn't Dance lucky to not be a credible threat. Lust was in heaven. He was floating on air. Since the relationships were made official, they had started an amazing routine. The three of them watched TV, falling asleep on the couch together, with Lust comfortably in the middle, the best spot, in his opinion. Red's alarm woke them all up, and they all went their separate ways to work. Lust and Dance would meet up during their lunch break. That didn't change. But sometimes their lunch break included other things. Things like hand-holding, lingering touches, a gentle kiss, and occasionally locking themselves in a closet to have a quickie. Dance chased away the burn, kept it manageable for a while, and with each round, Lust could feel Dance's confidence and skill grow, leading to better and better performances. Dance made it easy to last until evening, when Red came over again, food in one hand and beer in the other. Then Red chased the burn away entirely, giving Lust some actual relief from it. Dance showed up sometime later, having already eaten dinner with his brother, which worked out well enough since Red seemed pretty hung up about not letting Dance share with them, something Lust was going to have to address later. The three of them sat on the couch together, eating and enjoying each other's company. Okay, that wasn't entirely true. Lust enjoyed their company, and they presumably enjoyed his, but Red and Dance did not enjoy each other's company at all. It was the one thing that marred what would have been perfection. Red was relaxed and talkative before Dance arrived, but quickly became sullen and silent in his presence. Dance was easy and sweet when Red wasn't around, but became passive-aggressive towards him, and for some reason, nervous. The both of them would make backhanded jabs and try to one-up each other, territorial and possessive. And while a part of Lust was thrilled to be valued enough to be fought over, he couldn't help it. It did wonders for his low self-esteem. He didn't like the actual fighting. At first, Lust tried to ignore it, thinking maybe, possibly, they would work it out on their own. After the first week, he realized that they were not even trying to get along, just trying not to bother Lust with it. Lust gave it a few more days before deciding that that weekend they were going to do something fun together. He was going to get them to get along if it was the last thing he did. He didn't need them to be best friends, just friendly enough to be comfortable around each other. Or, barring that, friendly enough to trust each other to be alone with him. Lust consulted his brother over text message, needing a little help with the actual planning. Lust's brother was never the type to disappoint. It was Friday, and Lust had everything ready to go. Tickets, the hotel room, and he already got both of his boyfriends on board with the idea. They were going to be spending the next entire week together at a spa resort. Lust had originally only been thinking about the weekend, but Red didn't have work now that it was summer, and Dance had some vacation time set aside that he was apparently eager to use. Lust already called into his own work, and since he, luckily, didn't have any clients this next week, he got the time off. Sure, neither Dance nor Red had been expressly told that the other was also coming, but Lust doubted, with the way they had been behaving, that it would make a lick of difference either way. Red was the first to show up, knocking with his usual 2 rhythmic raps. Lust smiled, leaning against the door. "Who's there?"
"Gifter,"
Red's rumbling baritone answered. That sense of safety crept into the room, like a smell wafting through the crack under the door, chasing that annoying burning itch away. In the same moment it coaxed another kind of warmth in Lust's soul. "Gifter who?" Lust sighed, relaxing as he lazily undid the locks.
"Gift for you, sweetheart,"
was Red's answer. Lust brightened at the idea, surprised. He pulled the door open, beaming up at Red. Red had a bag slung over his shoulder and a grin on his face.
"Hey, sweetheart,"
he practically purred, pulling Lust close with his free arm. Lust reveled in the steadying weight of it on his shoulders and back, making a happy noise that barely expressed the most superficial surface of how he felt. Red stood there a moment, perhaps as caught up in the moment as Lust, although that was doubtful considering how very easily distracted Lust was, before guiding them both inside and kicking the door shut behind him. He dropped his bag by the door, then guided Lust to the couch, sitting them both down. Lust didn't notice at first, but he was seated in Red's lap, and for some reason he was more than okay with that.
"Now, I think we better talk about this one, 'cause this is a pretty big deal to me."
Red started, his fingers curling around Lust's neck, scratching lightly. That was very distracting, and he really liked that. But Red was talking, and it sounded like this conversation might be important. Lust tried to pull himself together. It got easier once Red's hand fell away, and Lust scolded himself inwardly for feeling disappointed, and reached into his coat pocket. He pulled out a small, black leather collar, thin but well padded for extra comfort, with a shiny steel buckle. Lust swallowed a bit, not entirely certain what this was supposed to mean, but his filthy mind was coming up with a number of scenarios that he was delighted by. "Oh, Red, is that for me?" Red's smug grin grew softer, almost shy.
"Well, yeah, but it's more than I think you realize it is. Remember how we misunderstood the whole food thing?"
Lust nodded. "Not that it didn't work out." He purred, still not believing his good fortune. If he had known what that would have meant, he would have cooked something himself, maybe put some actual effort into it for once. He couldn't suppress the laughter that bubbled up. "You're certainly easy to please if takeout was all it took to win you over." Red rumbled a laugh of his own.
"Wasn't just the shitty food, but I'd take all night explaining it to you, and I only do 1 lecture a day."
He wiggled the collar in his hand.
"Now this is a big deal for me, and it's gonna be a big deal for you too, see?"
Red paused, as if looking for the words he needed.
"Where I'm from ain't exactly the safest neighborhood. Lots of fighting and shit. Gotta be extra protective of what's yours. So when you get a date mate or have family, you make sure they're easily identified as yours so nobody's dumb enough to fuck with them."
"Oh, and you're so big and scary, so nobody's gonna want to touch your stuff," Lust teased, starting to catch on. "So what? You got property of Red engraved in a little dog tag or something? Kinky." Red blushed, grinning wider.
"Ain't a bad idea. But nah, just spent a week pumping my magic into the thing so anyone what tries to touch you is gonna feel it, know I claimed you, and back the fuck off."
Lust hummed. "Do I get to feel it too? Because that might be distracting, having essence of you around my neck all day." Red licked his teeth, eyelight smoldering.
"You'll get used to it, or not. Ain't gonna bug me much either way."
Red's arm shifted down from Lust's shoulders so his claw could rest on Lust's hip. Lust shivered.
"But that ain't all it's gonna do.
Red's voice grew a bit more serious, his grip more protective.
So long as you wear it, I'ma know where you are. I'ma be able to sense where you are anywhere you go. And if you get lost, I'ma be able to find you. Plus, you and I'll be the only ones who can take it off. So if someone tries to get rid of it, they're in for a shock.
Lust hummed thoughtfully. Having Red know where he was all the time, that was a big commitment. That was a lot of trust he would be putting into Red. And on top of that, Red would most definitely notice if he made a shortcut, and Lust had been trying to keep that a bit of a secret.
That's a bit more than I was expecting. Almost sounds like you're afraid I'll get kidnapped. That's kind of the point,
Red answered with solemn honesty.
Being mine means I value ya, and I've got folks what would love to get their mitts on something I value. Fuckers what want to hurt me, or get me to do shit for 'em they can't do for themselves. Collar or not, ain't gonna be much longer before someone notices you've been hanging around me, and I ain't gonna lie, not all of 'em are friendly.
Lust frowned.
So this is you taking precautions to keep me safe? Abso-fucking-lutely,
Red affirmed.
Ain't never gonna let shit happen to you, not if I can help it. But I ain't gonna dump this shit on you blind neither. I want you to know exactly what it means and what the consequences are. That grease monkey ain't entirely wrong. I got some baggage, sweetheart. Can't go pretending I don't.
Lust looked back at the collar, reaching for it. Red let him take it, sweating nervously despite his smug grin. Lust felt the leather, humming at the electric chill Red's magic sent through him. It felt great in his hands, soft and comforting, and it had been worn and treated to make it softer and more yielding. Comfort and durability had been the highest priority when making this. Lust couldn't get over just how thoughtful it was.
So far, I don't see a downside, sweetie. Want to help me put it on?
Lust looked up at Red, smiling. Red's eyelight hazed over, and for a moment Lust thought he saw it shift in shape, but then Red shook his head.
I'd love to, but you gotta put it on yourself.
He tapped the buckle with a claw.
This is solid silver, with a coat of steel for strength and durability. You know silver's the best fucking conductor of intent and magic, and I've been pumping this fucker so full of mine, it'd make a boss monster think twice. If I put it on you ain't gonna be able to get it off yourself. You gotta do it so the damn thing will let you unhook it if you need to, or, wanna.
Les smiled wider at Red. So considerate. Red was so sweet for him, so good to him. Les leaned forward, pressing their teeth together softly. Red made a muffled, startled noise before wrapping both his arms around Lust and pulling him closer still. Lust shifted so he was straddling Red's lap, looping his own arms around his neck for stability and a sense of balance, even though he was rather certain Red's hold would keep him upright regardless. Red let out a feral sort of growl, sending a full-body shiver through Lust and sparking a familiar, yet for once completely organic, heat in his marrow. Lust found himself summoning his tongue and darting it out to lick at Red's teeth, sighing happily when Red's tongue met his and allowed him to taste that magic he had been, lusting after for months. His boyfriend tasted like watermelon, refreshing and chilled, relief from the eternal summer heat Lust had been baking in. When they finally parted, Lust was dizzy and disoriented, glad that he had such strong arms holding him upright because he would have fallen over otherwise.
There's something else I ought to mention.
Red's voice, deeper and roughened with something Lust refused to name, because giving it a name would make him think about it, and he was supposed to be focusing on what Red was saying, not on how natural and right it was to be spread open in his lap and panting with that taste in his mouth.
Way this magic works, it's gonna try to bond with you, 'cause it's derived from the same kind of magic soul bonds are. It's gonna try to link us up, and if you let it, I'm gonna be able to feel what you're feeling, like emotions and stuff. So if you don't want to let me in that far, you gotta resist that shit.
Lust hummed thoughtfully. Something about the idea of Red knowing what he was feeling was exceedingly attractive, but they still had some issues to work on. Lust didn't want to rush things any more than he already had. He wanted this to be a lasting relationship.
Is this a, one-time thing?
If I say no to that now, can I change my mind later?
Red grinned. It's gonna be like them annoying ass TOS pop-ups. Every time you take the thing off and put it back on, it's gonna disconnect and reconnect the bond. Gonna try it every time.
Lust sighed in relief. Then, to start, let's keep it simple. We can make it more later. He hummed, pulling the collar to his throat. Red's magic sparked and rubbed against his neck, deliciously unfair. He fumbled with the clasp a lot more than he thought he should have, his fingers trembling from the new stimulation. When Lust finally managed to cinch the buckle, he felt the rush of the magic, how it pressed on his soul invitingly, pleadingly. Lust would have given in immediately if he hadn't had advanced warning. He stilled his resolve to, politely, turn down the generous offer of more. The pressure lasted a minute or two before subsiding to a stable, protective presence in the back of his mind. Red hooked 2 fingers under the collar and tugged gently.
Ain't too tight? Feel okay?
Feels wonderful, Lust answered, shamefully honest.
Sure fucking looks good.
Red muttered under his breath, rumbling with satisfaction, his expression something soft and content. Lust wished Dance could see Red as he was right now, his calculated mask of hostility fallen away, unveiling the remnant of the caring, vulnerable monster Red would have been if he had never had to bear his scars, the monster he was when it was safe to be. Red pulled his claw away from the collar, instead wrapping it around Lust's waist and leaning back, holding him and running his knuckles up and down the ridges of Lust's spine. Lust purred, melting happily into the hold.
When we checking into the hotel?
Red finally asked, breaking the comfortable silence. Lust blinked sleepily. Later tonight, around 7. But we can't leave yet. Gotta wait for Dance.
Fuck.
Red cursed, tightening his grip a bit, his mood noticeably souring.
Why you gotta invite him again?
Because... Lust purred, looking up at him impishly, feeling particularly proud. You said whatever I wanted, remember?
Red huffed. You're killing me. Fucking killing me.
He complained, even as his claws resumed their lazy track up and down Lust's spine. Lust would take it, for now. Dance scrambled home to shower and pack. Thanks stars for shortcuts, or his predisposition for procrastination might have made him late. He quickly rinsed the sweat and various other fluids from his bones, then threw on his hoodie and sweats before stuffing what he would need in a gym bag, which he only had because his brother got it for him in case he wanted to start practicing again, which of course will never happen, but Paps isn't going to understand that no matter how many times he skillfully avoids going to the dance studio, and he's just gonna push that train of thought right back into its box and close the lid again. Okay, thanks, bye. Dance zipped up the bag, then made certain the doors and windows were locked. A nervous habit, even though they lived in a perfectly nice apartment complex, in a perfectly nice area, with perfectly nice human neighbors that didn't snap people's necks or walk around in dusty slippers. It's fine, it's okay, stop thinking about it. Dance punched the wall, letting the dull ache in his knuckles pull him out of whatever hole he had been falling into. He looked up, thankful he hadn't made another hole in the drywall, because weren't those a bitch to explain to Paps? Not that it mattered, since they had already lost their security deposit when he rewired the electrical system so the building wouldn't catch fire, not that the landlord had thanked him, the prick. Then took a deep breath. He made sure to leave a note for his brother on the fridge, reminding him where he was going and when he'd return. After one more quick sweep of the apartment, Dance shortcut to that alley by Lust's building and headed up to knock on the door. Lust answered as usual, grinning brightly. Dance, wonderful, now we can get going. Dance, however, was struck dumb. Lust was wearing a collar, a lovely black leather one. It looked good. Got a new accessory, I see. Lust hummed happily, hooking 2 fingers over it and tugging lightly. You like it? It was a gift. A gift? Dance parroted, something heavy and venomous congealing in his soul.
Yup.
Red's voice perked up as he came into view, sounding far too smug.
For me? Don't he just look great in it?
Dance ground his teeth, watching as Red leaned down and deliberately picked up an overnight bag from the floor. Of course he's coming. It was just Dance's luck. Lust picked up a bag of his own, spinning his keys on one finger. Alright, now onward to a week of rest and relaxation. Dance seriously doubted he would be getting any rest, not while knowing Red was in the same building, but he made sure to smile and nod, shooting Red a dirty look when Lust turned his back to lock up his apartment door. Red just smirked wider, false tooth gleaming malevolently in the light of the setting sun. No, Dance wouldn't be getting any rest at all. When Lust had told him he got tickets to a spa, Red hadn't expected it to be the 5TT Sparkle-tastic Spa Hotel and Casino, the single gaudiest building in the entire city. Sure, it was luxurious, but at what cost? It was pink. But hey, whatever made his sweetheart happy. It still had booze and a pool and a talented staff, so who was he to complain? Besides, not much could really ruin today. After all, Lust had put on the collar. His pet was wearing his collar. How much better could life get? He certainly didn't think he would enjoy the subtle signs of jealousy emanating from Dance. But he did. There was something immensely satisfying about it, and Red couldn't be certain if it was because it was Dance specifically, or if it was just that someone, anyone, could appreciate and covet the treasure that Red had. He supposed it didn't matter in the end. Lust went up to the front desk to check in, leaving Red and Dance to hang back. Red could feel Dance quietly seething, despite his casual slouch and congenial grin. Red snorted. Fake bastard wasn't fooling him for a moment. Lust came back with 3 keycards, grinning. Let's go get settled, then we can enjoy the pool? Red took his card, flipping it between his knuckles.
How's about the casino? Win some drinking money.
Dance scowled at the suggestion, which only made Red like it even more. Red wasn't above a little pettiness, especially when it ran parallel with his personal preferences. I've never been to a casino before, Lust mused, heading for the elevator. Red began to follow, glaring a warning when Dance stepped between him and Lust. Lust, thankfully oblivious to the exchange behind him, pressed the button. Is it really all that fun?
It can be, if you know how to play,
Red affirmed, flipping Dance off. What do you say, Dance? Lust asked, finally turning around. Red quickly moved his hand so it looked like he was scratching his neck under his collar. Dance must have seen the genuine interest in Lust's eyelights, because he sighed. Yeah, alright, for a little while, I suppose. Lust beamed. The elevator arrived, and the 3 of them got inside. Lust confidently pressed the button for floor 6. Red tried not to think about how close the 3 of them were to each other in that enclosed space. He didn't mind being close to Lust, but having Dance close to either of them was irritating. Plus, Red was less than a fan of enclosed spaces in general. They were annoying. He tapped his foot, impatient to be out of the cramped metal box, even though he knew he could just shortcut out at any time. Lust looked up at him, catching his attention with the gleam of concern in his eyelights. Red tried to look confident and reassuring, but he's certain it came off as irritated and menacing. He had never been very good at looking anything but menacing. Not that that's been a bad thing before. Thankfully, Lust seemed satisfied with what he got and turned back around to wait for the door to open. It couldn't open soon enough. Lust led the way to their room for the week, opening it with an elegant swipe of his keycard and pushing the door open. Here we are, home away from home. Red let the both of them go inside first, closing the door after him and checking that the lock mechanism was sturdy and functional. Then he turned around to investigate the room. It was gaudy, decorated in shades of hot neon pink and pastel baby blue. Everything was square or rectangular, shapes meant to be a callback to the robot's debut bodies. It had 2 big lamps, a big TV, and 1 big bed. 1 bed. Oh, shit.
Lust, there's only 1 bed,
Dance commented. That's right. Lust hummed, putting his things down. I didn't want the 2 of you fighting over who shares what bed, and since we end up asleep on the couch together anyway, I figured we could all share together. Red clicked his teeth, annoyed. He'd been so looking forward to some alone time with his pet, but now he had to put up with the judgmental prick even at night. The only consolation was that at least Dance didn't seem to like the idea any better.
Suppose you ain't wrong,
Red muttered, sighing as he found a corner to put his bag down. It's not a problem, is it? Lust asked, looking up from where he was putting his bag.
Nah, whatever's fine.
Red waved it off.
Don't change nothing.
Lust smiled. Okay, good. He linked arms with Dance, then grabbed Red's hand. So, to the casino? Red smirked.
Sounds like a plan.
He opened the door, leading them both out and down the hall. Sure, he wasn't looking forward to another elevator ride, but now he would get to show Lust a good time, and better yet, show up Dance. Tonight was going to be fun. Hey everyone, thank you so much for listening. If you liked it, hit the like button to let me know and subscribe to see what I make next. Links in the description lead to the original fic posted on AO3, as well as my Patreon and Ko-fi. If you like my stuff, please consider supporting me. Every little bit helps. Lastly, if you have a request for a recording, whether a one-shot or a series, let me know in the comments. I also do commissions, details of which are on my Patreon. So keep in touch.